Hi, I'm Tom Zampakos. This week's episode dropped right into my lap. Last week I was road tripping to the Atlanta Greek Film Expo, and this week we're going to review the 4 out of 5 movies that I saw, the short films, and the event itself, obviously. So, we'll start off by saying beautiful, beautiful drive through Georgia. Driving through Georgia in October is a blessing. And, there's peach farms, rolling mountains, sunshine, big double-decker wraparound porches on old southern homes. Nice stuff like that. And the first movie was on Friday, about 7 o'clock, titled Stelios, about Stelios Kazantzidis, one of the most famous Greek singers, a musical biopic. And in general, I like musical biopics. I think I like pretty much all of the ones I saw. Which ones have I seen? Cadillac Records, about the Sun Records bluesmen, and the one about Queen, I think they titled it Bohemian Rhapsody, and the Johnny Cash one, Walk the Line. I saw the Ray Charles one as well. I always like it. It's cool. A type of movie that I tend to enjoy. This one was particularly interesting because the actor and actress, I think they might be singers first, and then they took a part in this movie. They sang beautifully, they sounded very realistic, and overall, I thought the movie looked beautiful. I thought it told a story I was interested in. And here's a strange criticism for a movie: they toned down the drama a little bit. There were moments where they could have had room for a big fight, a big to imagine a big emotional moment between characters, but kind of stepped back a little. I thought that there was one particularly interesting scene where his wife, who sings with him, Stelios is the lead character, and his wife sings with him, and while they're performing, she starts waving her arms a bit to the music, which angers him, and he says in the dressing room, "What are you doing? Trying to be the center of attention, waving your arms around like a traffic conductor." I think that they sort of underplayed fights of that nature. I think that when they wrote the movie, they, as any good biopic should, sort of included good and bad things about him. He fought to have his own record company and make sure that other artists earned a percentage instead of a fixed income for their work, because they were selling a lot of records in those days. They had an interesting statistic that there were 30,000 record players in Greece, but 100,000 of his records sold a year. So he had to reach well beyond his native country and native language, which is very interesting. And it's good to show the good and bad aspects of him. Someone who can walk away from or fight against the entertainment industry, but also some of those more complicated aspects of his personal life, like his series of relationships and wives and things. Musical biopics follow a fairly familiar track, but I still like it. I like when the main character and his pals are sitting around a coffee table and they're writing song ideas on napkins, and they have, I guess it's a trope of the genre, but I still enjoy it when they have some early version of what will later become a famous song. They're slowly picking through an iconic melody, or writing down a lyric and then crossing it out to write what will ultimately be an iconic lyric that we recognize. Some people find that corny and overdone. I think it's a fine movie and type of movie, and I like it quite a bit. I went hiking the morning after, a sunrise hike at Panther Creek. Great decision making. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful mountain creek. Swam in some very cold water. And I accidentally slid down a natural water slide. So think of a big sheet of rock on the side of a trail. A downward ramp made out of a big, big, big rock platform. Water running down it, and then a big pool at the bottom. Well, I was in my swimsuit and I was just trying to kind of wash my hands after a snack, or wash the dirt off my feet as well. And Even though I know rushing water is always stronger than it looks, this thing carried me down like a water slide until I splashed in the pool. And I was completely uninjured, which was great. Not even banged up, which was surprising because there were branches all over. I went through branches and I bumped over rocks and things, but between the slick algae and the water, I just really didn't bang anything that hard. That was good. Swam a little bit, got back to the parking lot, and there was a note in the driver's handle written on a napkin in red ink. It said, "You have a nail in your back passenger tire." And I went back, and the note was telling the truth. There was absolutely a nail in there. I popped it out, and immediately a loud hiss of air. So I actually put the nail back in, and it stopped the hiss completely. Drove to one tire shop, but they closed before I got there. Drove to a second, got out. I was watching, trying to feel how the car was handling the entire time, and it didn't seem like it was losing air pressure. I got out and the nail was still in there. And the guy at Mavis Tire said, "This is a brand new nail." He said, "This is a brand new tire." And I said, "I know, I just bought it last week." And he said, "Well, we can't patch it. You're going to have to buy another one." I said, "Seriously?" And he said, "Yup." And then I said, "This happened to me last year. I bought 4 new tires and then had to buy a 5th because of a puncture." "Why? What's going on?" He said, "Just bad luck." Anyway, there you go. Which is a roundabout way of saying I missed the second film, Takis, about a former DJ and nightclub owner who rescues dogs and has some million Instagram followers or social media followers. I'm okay with missing that one, okay? You can make a movie about one dog and the dog will be a character and it can have a personality that you can get to know. There's good movies about dogs. I loved Homeward Bound when I was a kid. I remember watching that over and over again at various... I don't really know what the occasion was, but it's okay to have a movie about dogs, but 40 dogs, how could you get to know any of them on screen? And social media followers, all right, who cares? And DJ night, I don't know. It's just sort of, I was okay with missing that one if I had to pick one out of the brochure to miss. Okay, next film, Saturday at 7 p.m. Onomos to Murphy, which means Murphy's Law. Forgive any pronunciation errors, please. And this was a bit like Everything Everywhere All at Once, but Greek. A woman approaching 40 in Athens is arguing with her boyfriend who will not... My little campfire is smoking in my face. I'm going to back up. She's arguing with her boyfriend because he doesn't want to get married and have kids, and she's saying, "This is the next step for me in life. I'm ready to do this." So on and so forth. It's almost a cliche all over the world among people in their 30s, I suppose. The character is an actress. Not a successful one. After a car crash, she starts zipping through alternate realities of her life, alternate versions of her life, wherein she gets a chance to experience being a successful actress, married to a soccer player, or a completely broke, penniless cashier working for a mean boss, living in a shack with 13 children. And in that version of reality, the boyfriend at the start of the movie is her husband. Although they didn't make it perfect because she winds up falling in love with a fellow cashier. She had all these children, but I suppose she was, in this universe, attracted to women the entire time. And then she winds up in musical world where they sing and dance the entire time, which was kind of funny because in one of the earlier scenes in the movie when she's fighting with her boyfriend, it's because they fight because they're in the movies watching a musical, and she whispers to him, "To me, this is heaven. People singing and dancing despite their misery." And her boyfriend says, "Why do you always have to imagine that you're going to be happy somewhere else? Why can't you just be happy here with the way things are?" And she gets angry at him and says, "You ruined my favorite movie." So at the end of the movie, when the whole time her character's been dying in a hospital somewhere that we haven't been seeing that. We've been seeing the different lives that she's been offered a chance to live. Kind of like It's a Wonderful Life or Everything Everywhere All at Once, or any movie where the character gets to see different versions of their future based on their choices. A world with or without them, the way it was. Well, she winds up in this imaginary musical world, and they're working hard to entertain this guy enough to save him from depression. It's kind of a wild, surreal, pull the stops up movie, and eventually she winds up surviving the car accident, and that brings it all back home. And I won't say what she was looking for or trying to accomplish that she ultimately finds, but I will say that this movie, it ended properly. See, a lot of movies are so driven by wish fulfillment that no matter how bad things get on screen, you know that the characters are going to get what they want, because a lot of Hollywood movies are about wish fulfillment. And so you watch it, and even there might be a tense moment, but you can't really get worried for anybody. But these movies aren't like that. Anybody can die, anybody can be disappointed, and anybody can fail. They're not as formulaic, so they're going to surprise you. That's kind of a feature that I've noticed from, I think, Greek movies in general. And this one walked that line pretty well. The next film was Riviera. We got a crumbling villa on the Athenian Riviera. We have a pair of friends, one of whom is, how shall we say, so much more worldly. One of them is a bit introverted and sheltered, and one of them is very worldly and in some ways promiscuous and more sure of herself. And it's basically about the loss of a way of life. Beautifully written and beautifully shot, but there's this tree that they kind of have a superstition that it can predict the future a bit or answer questions like an oracle, so they ask it questions. It doesn't really answer. But things are sort of slowly going into disrepair, and she's just dealing with the way in which her life is changing and trying to make peace with these things. Really well done. But you have to like that kind of movie to like this one. Some of the others almost anybody could like. This one, you have to have the appetite for it. And in keeping with an ancient tradition of Greek tragedy, the Sunday at 5 p.m. film Meat or Kreas deals with a family of butchers who, they have I think an Albanian who seems to work and live with them. He's almost a part of the family, but he's not a blood relative, if I understood the story correctly. Okay, they're feuding with neighbors, and the son of the family kills somebody, and the Albanian son or worker says, we'll give you, he gets offered a deal, we'll give you 20,000 euros if you admit to the murder, and then you'll inherit the butcher shop and farm and the whole family business when you get out. So it's just 8 years, but you're set up after that. Do whatever you want. Sell the business, earn a lot of money, whatever you want. Work just 8 years. And it gets really complicated, and I'm just not going to spoil whether or not he takes the deal, whether or not it works out, or how it works out in the end. I will say, of all the films, there was one scene in this one that got the biggest emotional reaction from the audience, because after learning that the son has murdered someone in the middle of a family fight, the character, the father, says, "I wish you'd never been born," and storms out. And that's when many of the elderly audience among the crowd said, oh no, because they thought this was a horrible moment. And I think that was the biggest audience reaction I saw anywhere in the 4 movies I managed to watch. To the organizers of this, thank you so much. You guys offered me a free ticket to the after party, which I did not purchase originally, at the wonderful restaurant Kima. If anyone's in Atlanta, I can't recommend it enough. It was some of the best food ever, and it came with a couple of free drinks. And meeting you guys was a total treat. The organizers and other attendees of the festival. So that was great. I hope to see you next year. And then to bring it all back to the updates that I've been doing episode after episode, we did discuss my own upcoming short film and the short films I've made in the past, and there was some interest. No promises are being made here at all, but there was some interest in screening those short films at next year's festival. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed in a situation like that, but it could be interesting, and we'll see. Okay, that covers it for now. See you next week. Bye.